So yeah, it's amazing how some people just don't, they say that they love Joe or know Joe and then say stuff like that. I believe, I don't know if maybe you had seen it, but someone had like favorite literary character of the day, Joe March, and said something like, oh, but then they gave up their independence to marry that old professor. And I'm like, first of all, you don't know the book. If you knew the book, you would have seen how that went down. And I don't think you really care about the character as much to say, like, to make that claim of Joe gave up her independence and she's not that great of a character because she did that in marrying a man that loved and support her. And honestly, I think as quote unquote unromantic as they are, they had probably one of the most romantic proposal scenes I've ever seen in book or in movie. Yeah, it's amazing how some people just, they think they have an idea of the character. And I almost sometimes think, that's so Laurie of you. You have this perceived image of what Joe is and what you want Joe to be, when the truth is Joe is not like that, but you just want her to be that way. And it happens to be most of the time the Joe and Laurie shippers that have that sort of delusional idea of who Joe is supposed to be.
I think the whole idea of not being like the other girls, it comes from very deep misogyny, actually. This idea that you are better than fellow women, it's a form of misogyny. And it was a trend some time ago, hopefully not so much these days. I think one of the problems with Jo, especially when she was younger, was that she identified so much with the masculine that she became very misogynistic. And you can really see that when she sort of makes fun of Meg wanted to go to a ball, or Amy, trying to impress her female friends. But then she grows out of that. And I think part of that actually has to do with her and Laurie's friendship sort of not fading, but she's growing out of it. Laurie has some great qualities, but he does sort of embodies this sort of 19th century typical, young man, the way they behaved. Jo got some really bad influences from him, and he from her as well. And then I think she kind of tries to block her emotions sometimes, because she feels that if she shows her emotions, then people are going to see her weaker. And when the people see her weaker, she's more feminine to them. She also grows out of that as well.
And that's why I think it's so even more moving to see her character development, because she goes from being someone who is so closed off and this is not tears, I just got something in my eyes type of person, to kind of being more open to take advice from people, more open to criticism, and more open to wanting to grow. Because I think it's very much a stifling thing when you are told, like, just hold it in because it's going to be seen as weak. And as someone that, in some ways, I was a very sensitive person, but I was always told that in a very negative light. So I was like, all right, you know what? I will just try to hold it in, and that was not healthy at all. And it was so almost in a way seen as kind of like a very feminine thing, like, oh, she's just an emotional little thing, the poor thing. And it's like, in some cases I was right, like, what they said was very rude or mean, but boys will be boys and you're just being too emotional over it.